I don't like that there's a stigma around ADHD, around autism, that it's like often people think either when they have it or they don't have it, that there's something wrong with them.
When I got diagnosed autistic when I was 40, the
That was
biggest
so recent. By the last appointment, she was like, I'm starting to doubt myself saying that you didn't have autism.
what you get from a therapist or a psychologist, it depends how good they are, but it's not always truly neurodivergent informed.
I just felt different and I did not want to be different.
I can remember saying, "Hey, guess what? Daddy's autistic too, sweetheart. We're the same, mate. Daddy understands what's
I
happening."
remember saying to my mum, I feel like a liar. I feel really bad. I feel like I'm a bad person because
If we are struggling with dopamine generation, then I feel like alcohol or drugs or anything like that can be a really dangerous and dark place.
I've never been drunk because of this. And
Really?
I've never, it's always terrified me.
Okay, welcome. My name's Chris Hall, and today I've got Laurie Faulkner with me. Now, Laurie is a wonderful content creator that speaks about ADHD, autism, neurodivergence, and her mission is to make this community feel heard and seen, which really speaks to my heart. I'm autistic myself. I'm undiagnosed ADHD, but I'm pretty sure that that's added into the spicy mix. And today I am really excited to kind of go down the rabbit hole to understand Laurie's journey, her mission, why she's doing it, and some of the distinctions of what she's found that journey to look like in her own life. So, Laurie, welcome to the podcast. It's really a pleasure
Thank
to
you
have you
so
on.
much. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting, the online community, right? So, look, I'm 42 and I got diagnosed autistic when I was 40. So that was the biggest
Wow.
sort. Yeah, yes, that was the
That was
biggest
so
like.
recent.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's I guess truly. I mean, I know late diagnosed is a term that we throw around, right? And it's real. But for me, that was quite not a slap in the face, but kind of like oh my God, 40 years of my life,
Yeah.
been going on like this. But the reason I'm mentioning that is just, because, just to share with the audience, I believe you have ADHD and you're autistic as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm the opposite of you. I'm diagnosed ADHD. I'm self-diagnosed autistic. I don't know that I am. Actually, I'm going to get a diagnosis because I'm pretty sure that I am. But yeah, I'm definitely diagnosed with ADHD. That's for sure.
Okay, and it's interesting on the self-diagnosis thing, right? Let's talk about that. The reason I feel like this whole what you're doing is so beautiful and important is that naturally when it comes to things like TikTok or Instagram or whatever, if you show an interest in a particular subject, then it just feeds you more of that. And that's how I
Mm.
discovered your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great because as I was going on that late diagnosis journey myself, your work literally helped me understand myself even more in the most beautiful way. And I'd love to just hear from your perspective the importance of that, because I can tell you one thing from experience, what you get from a therapist or a psychologist or whatever, it depends how good they are.
Yeah.
But it's not always truly neurodivergent informed because that person may or may not be neurospicy themselves,
Right.
right? So
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I feel really heard and understood and like, oh my God, I do that too when I watch your content. So just, I'll shut up
Yeah.
for a second. Tell me about the importance of that to you.
So that's the whole idea behind it. So I just started posting with my only intention being to reach as many people as possible to make them feel like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me, actually. That's like very normal what I'm doing. And I just don't, I don't like that there's a stigma around ADHD, around autism, that it's like often people think either when they have it or they don't have it, that there's something wrong with them.
Mhm.
Um, and there's not. You're just wired differently, and that's actually an amazing thing. But it's also a really hard thing. And so I think people go through a lot of inner turmoil, and I definitely did, especially when I was undiagnosed. So I just thought I want to be able to reach as many people as possible and make them feel like it's okay, like they're okay. It's just they're wired differently. And so I wanted to also make the content fun, and hopefully it is that, because I didn't want to just sit in front of the camera and like be really serious and talk about really serious things, because that's also not that helpful, because then it seems like there's a big problem, you know? So I wanted it to be, short, relatable, and that's really just how it started. And then it was when I started getting messages from people that I was actually having an impact on
Mhm.
them. I was then like, now I really do feel like it's my responsibility, especially when I was getting either messages from parents saying that I've helped them understand their kids, or what really touched me, obviously, was teenage girls would reach out to me and be like,
Mhm.
I now understand myself and I've been able to express to my parents better how I'm feeling. And as soon as I started getting that, I was like, right, that kind of spurred me on because that's what was important to me, to get that message out, to make people believe that it's okay, and help them find the words. Exactly what you said. I'm so glad that you've had that experience with my content because that means everything to me. That's the whole reason I'm doing it. I just want people to, be able to find those words to kind of share with the people that are closest to them, so they can help them understand,
Mhm.
how they're feeling and what they're going through.
Exactly. And the social media ecosystem is very relevant because um, let's take, for example, social batteries, right? And that's something that's relevant for both autism and ADHD.
Yeah.
Like I've got a very close-knit circle of friends, and they know this about me. But like when it gets to a certain time of the night, I'm like, Chris is done, Chris is
Yeah.
done. And if they carry on staying, I don't even be subtle about it anymore. I go, good night. I just
Yeah,
like go
yeah, yeah.
take myself away.
I love it.
So like I guess what I'm hinting at there is that sometimes we don't always feel like being extroverted, so therefore you might not find this kind of content in the
Mm.
real physical world, so to speak. But when you're actually sitting on your bed and having a little chill out and recharging your social batteries, Laurie comes up and you go, oh yeah, right, then it's really important. Like that place of online, especially social media, is so relevant for self-discovery.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I went down that route because originally I was working with children, and I've done a lot of work with a lot of neurodivergent kids, and I've been, a support in schools, and I've also been a class teacher, and I've also, I did my princess company. So I've tried to kind of reach kids because I feel like that's something that I'm quite naturally good at and I enjoy. Um, But I just think being on social media,
Mhm.
you can reach so many more people. And that was really important to me.
Mm.
Because I cannot, however hard I try, and of course I tried, I cannot reach that many people in one go. Like
Mm.
social media really is the only place in which you can post something and it can reach millions.
Mm.
And so I actually sat down at the beginning of this year and I was like, okay, what is something that I can do that will reach the most people? How do I get the message to the most people I can? And my answer was social media. And so I set myself that goal in January and here we are.
I love that. I love that. Now let's talk about the stages of diagnosis and how that can impact people, right? So I found out at 40. The reason I found out was because my son at the time was at preschool. He was having challenges, and honestly, for about 2 years, I was in denial. And I
Mm.
went, "Oh no, 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 he's okay, he's okay. He'll grow out of it. He's all right. He's just young.
Yeah,
He's at preschool." But then eventually, I came around myself. We did the diagnosis.
yeah,
Economic barriers is a huge thing. In Australia, what, 4 grand down the hole.
yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's a real barrier. But then we did that. And then after he got his diagnosis, then of course, as a parent, you become informed about what that means and how you can support your child, etc. And then after about 12 months later, that was oh yeah, ding, daddy does that too. And then that,
Yeah.
right. And then that led to the journey. Very common journey.
Mm.
I see a lot of online content talking about this, where they talk about Grandpa Joe, and Grandpa Joe will go, "Oh, everybody's bloody got autism nowadays. That's ridiculous. I'm not
Yeah.
autistic, but I'm going to go downstairs and look at my train set."
Yeah.
Like you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah, fully.
the apple don't fall far from the tree.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So
um,
funny.
so that was me sharing my story, right? So that is interesting because at even 18 years old, I remember saying to my mum, "Come on, like I recognize inside myself I'm a bit different. Don't you reckon I'm on the spectrum?"
Yeah.
And I was an 80s kid, right? And at the
Yeah.
time, it wasn't about autism level one, two, three in the DSM. It was about Asperger's, and people used to associate autism as the banging your head against the wall version,
Yeah.
which exists, and that's
Yeah,
fine
of
that it
course.
exists. There's lots of different variations. but things have changed a lot. I guess that's the way the reason I'm telling you this story is that I've seen the generational shift,
Yeah.
um, right? So that's me. But tell me about you. When did you find out your diagnosis?
Yeah, so I mean, firstly, it's interesting that you say that because I actually think still a lot of people carry that thought process about,
Hmm.
especially autism. I think
Hmm.
we've come quite far with ADHD, but especially autism. Um, there's a lot of people. I mean, I'm self-diagnosed autistic, so I can't say for a fact that I am. I do really think I am, especially given the amount of reading that I do about it. I see so much of myself there, and I also read the other day that 50% of people who have ADHD also have autism. So it's likely. Um, but I do think there's still a bit of a stigma around it. And even when I was diagnosed, so I was diagnosed at 23 with ADHD. Now, honestly, I'm going to take most of my family have ADHD, like obviously have ADHD. Like, it's very genetic. Uncles, grandparents, my parents, my brother, um, we all have it. And so even through that, I think that's a lot of the reason why it's underdiagnosed because it's so genetic. It's like your family, my family all said to me, not trying to kind of undermine anything that any doctor said, but they were like, Are you sure? Like, are they sure that that's what you've got?" And it's like, yeah, firstly, they are the medical professional. But secondly, yes, everything makes sense. Like, that does make sense for me. And I think my family had a lot, especially like, my uncles and my grandparents, they had a really hard time. Now that they completely accept it. And I've taught them a lot about ADHD. And now they're like, I think I actually have that. I'm like, yeah, you do. But yeah, I just think it's it's just interesting because I think we've got a long way to go with autism, particularly still.
Mm.
And that's why at the moment I'm posting quite a lot about autism because I'm seeing um, a lot more negativity around
Mm.
it and a lot more misunderstanding. Like, I think, yeah, you're right. A lot of people still think the only autism that exists is like that child that goes to special school and
Mm.
can't, like, yes, that is a type of autism and that's very real. And, you know, there's nothing, I'm not trying to say that that's, a bad thing and,
Mm.
whatever, but it's just, it's a spectrum.
Yep,
Highlight on the word spectrum, please.
correct.
Um, yeah, so in terms of my experience when I got diagnosed, it was very in terms of my life late diagnosis.
Hmm.
I've just turned 28, I've just had my 28th birthday. And I was at drama school at the time.
Hmm.
Um, and throughout my whole life I thought I was different. I didn't really understand why I seemed to be experiencing the world differently to other people around me.
Hmm.
I just thought I was, I just kind of put it down to I was just a bit more complicated and I was more sensitive. That's kind of what I thought. And then I went to at my drama school. It was an amazing drama school, and we all had to go and have an appointment with the counselor just to have a chat. Not because they thought there was something wrong with us, but just so that we could all have a chat with a professional. And that was when we started the course. So I went to her and I was just talking to her about how I deal with life day to day and how I feel and whatever. And, I was just chatting away. She goes, "Have you ever considered that you might have ADHD?" And I was like, "No." What do you mean? Like, no one's ever mentioned this to me.
Hmm.
Um, and her job was actually diagnosing ADHD in children for the NHS
Aha.
alongside. So she worked 50-50, part-time as a counselor, part-time diagnosing ADHD. And she was like, "I'm going to send you all the criteria just so you can have a look through it, see if you relate to any of it." She couldn't diagnose me, obviously, because that wasn't the job she was on at the time. But she was like, I would recommend that you go through that list. And if you relate to that, then go and get that checked.
Mm.
Um, and I just read through this list and I was like, right, well, I'm ticking every single box. Like, there were no boxes unticked, not one.
Yes.
It's like crazy. And I went through it with my mum as well, and she was like, "That's interesting because I'm also ticking all these boxes." And my brother's also like, "Wait, I'm also ticking all these boxes." Um, and so then I went and I had my diagnosis. I was also diagnosed with dyspraxia,
Okay.
um, which also made a lot of sense. And during that assessment, actually, I brought up because I thought before ADHD was ever brought into any conversation, I thought when I was about 15, 16 that I had autism because I felt so different. And that was really the only thing I knew about at the time.
Mm.
Um, and so I kind of convinced myself that that was what was going on. And everyone was like, no, no, you're not, you're too socially capable. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm not socially capable. I've learned to be socially capable. Like you don't understand. And I would
Yeah.
find that so frustrating.
Yes.
Um, and then, so I spoke to the a person who diagnosed me for my ADHD and dyspraxia. I spoke to her at the time and I said, listen, I do think that I could also have autism. Would you be able to assess me for that? And on my first appointment with her, she was like, you definitely don't. The way that you're talking to me, you're able to hold eye
Mm.
contact with me. There's
Mm.
like no way, we're not assessing you for it. And I was like, okay. And obviously it's over a period of like, you go to several appointments. By the last appointment, she was like, I'm starting to doubt myself saying that you didn't have autism, but it's
Mm.
now too late to go through that process because we're at the end of the diagnosis, and I have given you ADHD and dyspraxia. But on the kind of write-up, she did say that she does think it's actually quite likely that I'm autistic, but we never went through the process. So
Yes.
it was just
Mine was the
interesting.
same in reverse. It was definitely autistic. Don't know yet about ADHD. Quite possibly could be, right?
Yeah,
So that too early to say thing is a common journey too that I think it's important people are aware of. And the thing
yeah,
that you're referring to there is the DSM-5. And again, for the benefit of people listening, that those that don't know, the DSM-5 is basically the Bible of psychology, so to speak. And all of these criteria, one of the ways in order to get a diagnosis, you do have to tick. It's either all of them or like 8 out of 9 or whatever. It needs to be a
yeah.
really
It's like vast
high.
majority. Yeah,
Yeah, so it can't just be one, right? And that's I guess why it's important, to go to the professional if you really think you might do, etc., and all that stuff, right?
yeah.
But it's interesting. What now that you've had a few years to have to digest that, right, and understand what that means, and clearly you're expressing that through your content as well. When you look back on your childhood, because I know literally little girls and young women, that's important to you because it's close to your heart and your
Yeah.
journey. What was the impact of not having a diagnosis when you think about early childhood, teenager years?
So in my early childhood, I would say I was labeled as a child that either was like really hyper and too talkative in class, and this depended on the teacher. Um, I was either in trouble or I did not speak. And that's just the child that I was. And the teachers, we'd go to parent-teacher meetings, and my parents would be told either that I'm like really badly behaved and I talk to everyone and I distract, or I just don't engage at all. Um, Now, obviously, I know that that's because I have ADHD, and it very much depends on my environment. I adjust to it. There's definitely an element of masking that was going on.
Yes.
It depended on the other children in the class, what friends were around me at the time. Um, and so that's kind of what happened when I was very young. And I was rarely in trouble, I would say. It would more show up as being inattentive. So I would definitely not be listening in class ever. Whether it's that I was distracting other children or not, I was never listening. I was always doing something else, always. Um, and just not very engaged. But I was also really aware that I was different. I've always been aware of this. And it's not because people were telling me I was different. I just felt different. And I did not want to be different. From a very young age, I did not want to be different to any of the other kids. I was so set on
This
this.
is a crucial point, isn't it? So again, for the people that might be listening that maybe aren't neurodivergent, masking is a very key term. You can hear my Mancunian accent there, masking versus your masking.
Yeah.
I like it. Is it a bath or a bath? I don't know. But when it comes to masking, that basically literally is like theatre school. You're putting on the performance, right?
Yeah.
Of course, it exists in both men and women, but I feel like young girls and women are better at it,
Yeah.
generally. And because you want to fit it, because socially we know it's almost a survival instinct of like, we have to know that we fit in with the tribe, otherwise the tribe might expel me. They might, they might
Yeah.
get rid of me. So I
Mm.
think it's a survival instinct that kicks in. So therefore, you learn to put on the mask in subtle
Yeah.
ways, and then amongst that, there might be a sense of, but I feel rejected because I can't really be who I am.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that was just a constant battle. And I didn't obviously, when I'm talking like young child, I didn't really have the words for that at the time.
Exactly.
But it did show up as I was an extremely anxious child. And like if too much was going on, I'm overstimulated and I would just kick off. And I could not control my emotions. And as I got older, I got to about age 9, and I would have a panic attack every single night before I went to bed
Oof.
because it just got too much. And my parents were thinking, what is going on
Yeah.
with like my child? Because I was 9 years old and I just couldn't cope with life. And there was nothing in my external environment that was causing that. Like I have a very supportive family. I have a great relationship with them. I had good friends at school. Academically, I was doing well. There was nothing really like on paper that you could be like, that's the problem. Um, but clearly, it was just because I was overwhelmed by my own head, what was going on inside my own head, and feeling constantly the pressure of, and as you get older, the social pressure becomes more and more because you become more socially aware. You start to build your, your own moral compass and your own kind of norms of what is socially acceptable. And that starts to become more and more important. And for
Hmm.
me at that age, is just kind of when I went, this is too much.
Mm.
Um, and then as I got older, I would say I honestly, when I was like around 11, 12, 13, I was so like far into masking that I just had m multiple meltdowns to my parents saying,
Mhm.
I don't know who I am. Like I remember saying to my mum, I feel like a liar. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, I feel like I'm lying
Yes.
all the time. I feel really bad. I feel like I'm a bad person because I lie. I always lie.
Yeah.
And she's like, what do you mean you always lie? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like I lie. And I remember having this conversation when I was about 12 or 13. Because to me, it was like I wasn't being myself, but I was also confused about what myself was.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I kind of get myself caught up in like these social things with people, or like some girls who weren't particularly nice would come over to me and I think, oh, now I need to say some like not very nice things about people. And then I feel really guilty about that because I'm like, no, but I actually like the people that I just talked about, but I got caught up in it because I felt like I had to.
Hmm.
And when you're a kid, like that's all just so overwhelming. Um, and obviously, I was brought up not to say bad things about people. And then I would say them, I'd be like, why am I doing that? That's not even me. I don't even think about that. And then I would feel the need to go and tell that person, hey, I'm really sorry, but I just said this thing about you, but I didn't mean it. Like, like
Yeah.
just so unnecessary. But it all just became so important to me at that time.
Hmm.
And then when I got to about 15, 16, I, I mean, now looking back, I was
Hmm.
definitely depressed.
Yes.
Um,
Right.
100%. And
Hmm.
I think that obviously just built up over time. From what I've just told you, I think that was all just compiling and compiling. And I got to that point and I actually withdrew myself from everything because I was so stressed out by socializing.
Hmm.
I literally opted to not socialize anymore.
Hmm.
And I took myself out of all the friendship groups at school and I told my parents and any teacher that asked me why I don't have any friends, I just said I don't want to be a part of it. I don't like
Hmm.
that they talk about other people. It stresses me out. I think that they'll be talking about me. And I just, I found everything socially really stressful.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just removed myself from it. And I think that obviously, as I've grown up, I understand like it's so important to have a community around you.
Hmm.
And I withdrew myself from that community. Now, I thought at the time it's very toxic. It's actually very normal for that age group to be doing that. But because I was overthinking every interaction ever, for
Hmm.
me, it was like, I just can't do it anymore. I'm out. Um, and so that really sent me down into, spiraling a lot.
Mm.
Um, and then I hated myself more because I was like, well, I don't have any friends and something is clearly wrong with me. And I feel like I looked on the outside like I really didn't care because I withdrew myself. And
Hmm.
so no one tried to bring me back into the group.
That's the danger of it, right? That's the danger. And
Yeah.
everything you're describing here is so crucial because it goes into the area of mental health, self-identity,
Mhm.
and for young people, the benefit of a diagnosis is the language and the
Yeah.
framework to understand all of these things. And if you can have a family and friendship group and the teachers in your life or whatever it is, if you're at school, that's so crucial because
Yeah.
then some of these things do alleviate, don't they, from early we have the ability to go, okay, little Bobby's overstimulated, let's do this, instead or
Yeah.
whatever. Um,
So yeah, and like that's why it is important
oh
to
yeah.
have that diagnosis, just even as something that you can reflect on yourself. Like if
Yep.
I could be told at that time,
Mm,
what you're experiencing, you're overstimulated
mm,
socially. It's fine.
mm,
It's completely normal, for someone with ADHD. Um, if I was to be given some coping mechanisms to deal with that or the words to explain it to
mm,
people, I think it wouldn't have gone that far. And I think that's what's so important because thank God I'm fine now. My mental health is good, but I have done a lot of work on that.
yes.
Um, but I obviously wish I didn't have to go through all of that when I was so
Hmm.
young. And I know that there are so many people who are going through that. And yeah, to your point, that's why diagnosis is important because it's helping people understand that it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken,
Mm,
you are different, but that's okay.
mm,
Let's, find a framework to help you deal with that. And
mm,
I just didn't have that framework. And I just thought, well, something's clearly wrong with me then because
mm.
no one else is thinking like I am. I can tell they're not because they're not reacting how I do to other things happening around them. So I know they're not doing what's going on in my brain. So what's wrong with my brain, you know?
Hmm. Oh, I can remember getting my diagnosis, and then after a few days of digesting it, I sat down with my son, who was, I don't know, 5 or something at the time. He was younger, right?
Yeah,
Actually, maybe perhaps 6 or 7.
yeah,
Um, and it was a very touching moment because I can remember saying, "Hey, guess what? Daddy's autistic too, sweetheart. We're the same, mate, and it's
yeah,
okay because Daddy understands what's happening, and I understand your world, and you understand me, and we're the same, so we can help each other,
yeah,
can't we?" And it was
yeah,
like a moment that brought me to tears because, that
yeah,
it's almost like I was reparenting myself in that moment. I was
yeah,
going, I can be here for you, son, because I'm starting to understand what this means for me. And
yeah, yeah,
oh, that is it was so special, and it is special because
yeah.
my goodness, it's the diagnosis, but the parental thing, if they can, it doesn't mean that every parent has to have the same thing going on for them, but again, the framework and the language, it's so
Yeah.
positively formative. And now my son, like, sure, he knows he's autistic. But I've seen him like stand up in front of class and kind of go like, "I'm autistic, and that means that my brain has these superpowers, and I'm really good at this." And
Yeah,
he embraces his inner genius,
amazing.
right? And I love that.
Yeah, as he should.
Damn straight, and but then also equally for him and for me, we can then know that if he's stimming, that's okay, he's stimming. And let the stim happen. And again, for those that don't know, a stim is anything that could be like a physical repetitive movement, maybe some kind of vocalization or something like that. And if he's stimming away, let him stim because actually the suppression of the stim is unhealthy and it
Mm,
can lead to some of these problems that you were
yeah.
describing in terms of mental health, right?
Mm.
But also equally, sometimes when he's being like, there's times when he might be doing a stim that's a bit annoying. You're like,
Yeah,
sweetheart, it's okay to stim, but can we do the other one?
yeah, yeah. Especially with you being autistic as well. Like, I often find this with other people who have ADHD, like they're doing something repetitive, and I'm like, oh, but that noise is actually so annoying.
Oh, totally. Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm struggling with that myself.
I mean, I think one thing that's not often talked about. I mean, I know this because I work in disability in Australia, right? So I actually have a disability business, and we look after all sorts of people, right? And I love it. It's very meaningful. So what I know is that when it comes to neurodivergence, like I know this from my own family life, it's quite common for people with ADHD and autism to kind of set each other off when it comes
Yeah,
to the home environment, because like one's dysregulated or whatever and heightened, and then that
100%.
sends off
Yeah.
the other person, and it turns into like a
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. I
Mm.
completely, and me and my mum are exactly like that. Like, we're best friends until we're not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Wow. Yeah, again, power of social media, right? So then if
Yeah,
you've got a teenager person watching something even like this and they go, "Oh my God, thank you," because it helps them
yeah,
feel understood. And if that can then lead to then exploring a potential formal diagnosis with a proper professional and all that jazz, which is important. I do think
yeah,
it's it is important not I think one danger can be it can be dangerous if you've got say like 10 traits. If you've got a young person, I'm speaking to the audience now, like if
yeah.
you're listening to this and you go, oh, I've got 5 out of those 10, that doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily mean that you might have the traits, right? So you've got to go through a process.
Yeah, exactly.
It's because it might be something else. You know what I mean? It's really important to explore that and get the formality of things looked at eventually if you can. Uh,
Yeah, I completely agree. And you know what, to that point, I get a lot of messages from young people
mm,
saying, I think I have ADHD, and they'll like list their symptoms to me and say, like, do you think I have it? And
mm,
every time I get a message like that, I'm like, listen, I am speaking from my own experience. I can't diagnose anyone.
yeah.
If you think you have symptoms or traits of something,
Mm,
great, write those things down, think about them, digest them, but take them, please, to a doctor to go through the actual process of getting diagnosed because
mm,
I can't, and I try to be really careful in my content. I don't say things like these 5 things mean you have ADHD. I say it
mm,
might mean, or these things that there are symptoms of ADHD that maybe you didn't know about.
mm.
Not this means you definitely have it because it absolutely doesn't. You're right, it does not.
Okay.
And we do have to be careful.
Exactly. I want to talk about some differences of language here for a second. So, like, we're both from the UK originally, but I'm 15 years in Australia, right? One thing I
Yeah.
noticed about moving down under is that everything is definitely more straight to the bloody point, and it's no,
Mhm.
it's cruder, and I love it. I kind of love the,
Yes.
it is what it bloody is, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the word I want to unpack the word disability in association to ADHD and autism and all that stuff because that still to this day for my own self is a
Yeah.
really interesting journey because A, I work in the industry and B, but I go,
Yeah.
but it's myself as well, it's me, and do I think about myself like that? So
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
just tell you my experience briefly, and I want to hear it from you as
Yeah.
well because I do think there'll be differences of culture, and you've been in the UK sort of like more recently and longer, and so I might be being a bit more Aussie right now in my crudeness, right?
Yeah.
So let me unpack it. The way I think about myself when I use the term disability, because in Australia they would say autism is a disability, ADHD is a disability.
Mhm.
That's what the society says, so to speak, right?
Yes.
I'm not saying I agree or disagree with that.
Yeah.
Now, when I think about my own self, I am autistic level 1, right? So that means that it's often misunderstood because people go, "Oh yeah, but look, you're talking and you're this and you're that." And I might be looking at the camera now, but if you and I were chatting and having a coffee, there might be moments where you're just looking this way and I'm chilling looking this way, and we're
Oh
totally
yeah, which by the way, I would so like not even notice because I would do the same thing.
exactly. And it doesn't mean you're not present, it's just differences.
Yeah.
But the times that I find it, I'll use the word disabling, is
Mm.
if it's too loud. That's my sensitivity, right?
Yeah.
So if it's too loud or I'm socially like, I'm done, I've had too much, I don't want to mask anymore, I'm done.
Yeah.
Um, it's the kind of the moments where at the end of the day, I come home and I've got my 2 dogs that are little shits and they bark, and I call them regret one and regret two. My wife hates that, but that's what I do.
Yeah.
And they're barking too much and the kids are shouting and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Those are the moments where I'm like socially and auditory wise overwhelmed. So in
Yes.
those moments, I admit within myself that not always, but it can lead to a meltdown where I'm like, "Ah, I can't, whatever."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's genuinely like, I'm not able. I recognize myself. I'm not able to cope in that moment if it gets
Yeah.
to that point.
Hmm.
Um, so, like, as an adult, trying to be a good parent, trying to be a good husband, all that stuff, I do my best to try and maintain my own wellness, my own
Yeah.
TLC, so that I do unwind and I keep my fitness up. And I know you're into your running and things like that. And
Yeah.
if you fill your batteries up, then you can reduce your likelihood of having a meltdown.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
do you know what I mean? With that
Yeah.
endorphin rush. But it can happen. Now, the reason I'm setting the scene with all of this is that I do recognize in certain moments, specifically like that, it
Yeah.
does feel disabling, right?
Yes.
So, in one way, I kind of embrace the term,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, maybe this is for, I don't know, 70% of it, I go, no bullshit, I'm just different, right?
Yeah.
Because I know that there are certain genius areas where my ability to focus on certain things and systems level thinking and like I
Mhm.
see things that other people don't.
Yeah.
Um, and expresses itself in my own career, in my
Yeah.
friendships, in my intuition. And I go, thank fuck I'm autistic. Thank fuck I've got ADHD. Like, hell yes, I embrace who I am. I love that about myself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's this dichotomy between the two things. And I think that part of it is screw society, so to speak, you're just labeling us wrong. So I embrace that
Yeah.
part of me, but I also do recognize there are moments where I need support because I kind of
Yeah.
go, ah, I'm not coping.
Yeah.
That's my verbal, bleh, tell me
Yeah.
your perspective, put it around the turn.
Yeah, so I actually agree with that. But one thing that I will say, and I think this is honestly because I get a lot of messages from people talking about their experience, which is so helpful to me because everybody's experience is different.
Mm,
Even if we have the same diagnosis, we're living different lives.
yes.
And I know that I'm very fortunate to be able to be doing a job that I love in a place that I love. Like when I'm in the UK, I'm less productive because the sunshine for me is important, and
Mm,
that helps me be less overwhelmed. Small things here, like I realized the other day, I love Miami because I don't have to worry about what I need to wear every day. For me, I find clothing really overstimulating.
yeah.
Here, it's literally you put on a comfy pair of shorts and a sports bra, that's it.
Yeah.
Because everyone's wearing that. That's what is like the weather allows you to wear it. And for me, that's what I find comfortable wearing. And so taking that decision out of my day, it helps me to not feel overwhelmed. So I
Mm,
think I know that I'm in a position where I can think about the positives, but I'm also very aware because of the messages that I get, and thank God I get them, so I can see other perspectives. I think a lot of people aren't fortunate like that, and
mm,
they are not able to do a job that they love, and they do feel like they're struggling every day because, they're taking care of someone, and that's really hard for them because they're also trying to take care of themselves. Um, or there's a bunch of other stuff going on in everyone's lives, and so I think that it's recently I've thought this that it's actually privileged for me to be able to sit and think, you know what, actually this is a great thing for me, um, and I embrace it and I love it, and like you said, like I understand that there are things about it that I find really hard, and I can get overwhelmed and I can get overstimulated, but I am in a position in life where I can most of the time think about the positives and appreciate
mhm,
those positives. Um, and I think that I've been in that position a lot of my life because my family have been so supportive. Even when I was very little, if I'd get overstimulated, no one was shouting at me and telling me that I was wrong. And I know that that's also not an experience other people have lived. Um, so I think that's one thing is like, I think it depends on the person. For me, I am completely aligned with your experience. I don't see it as a disability. I understand that it does cause me issues. And in those moments, yes, it feels disabling.
mm,
Um, but I do also think that I'm fortunate to be
mhm,
able to think about the positives. So that's
mm,
one thing. Um, Another thing is that I don't I don't like the term disability for anything, whether it's
mm.
ADHD, autism, or a physical disability.
Okay.
Um, I just don't think that I think everybody has things that they're really good at. And even if, you have one leg, maybe there's something that you can do. I'm sure there is
Mhm,
that I could not do, because I don't
mhm.
live the experience you're living. And I don't think that that is, I don't like to call that a disability.
Yep.
I don't know what I want to call it because,
Mhm,
that person clearly isn't able-bodied in the way that we would perceive
mhm,
able-bodied. Um, but I don't think that the term is particularly useful. I don't think that it adds anything positive, put it that
mm.
way.
I get what you mean, and this is, and as you can see, probably my authenticity here. I'm still processing this about myself. I'm trying to come
Mm,
to terms because, like, I work in the bloody industry, and you've got what society will call it versus what you're trying to figure out about yourself. And I think when
yeah.
it comes to say like autism, especially when it comes to, because there are the different levels, right? So I'm level one, my
Yeah.
son's level two, and I can see
Yeah.
the difference,
Yes.
I know that level three autism can, not always, but it can be the sometimes non-verbal version. It can be
Yeah.
self-harming versions, and all of those things exist, right? I suppose individuals like you and I, because we are quite verbal, right? And people,
Yeah.
some people might use the term high functioning, like, oh, okay, I'm
Yeah.
high functioning until I'm not,
Yeah. Exactly.
right? Oof. But I suppose one of my privileges is that I can express this. Therefore, I'm sure you probably feel the same. For those
Yeah.
that aren't verbal and those that can't express that because of what they've got going on for them, at least our work can help the rest of the world understand and appreciate them and what they
Yeah.
need,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
for sure. And what's also interesting is that even that, which again, I agree with you, I think that it's so important that because we're able to express, what's going on, I think it's important that we do. But I have, I've spoken to people recently, and this is why I keep an open conversation with a lot of my followers because I think it's so important to get different perspectives.
Mm.
Um, so I can also make sure that I'm not only sharing my own. I want to
Yep.
be able to speak about as many experiences as I can.
Mm.
Um, but someone was telling me the other day, which is really interesting, that they feel sometimes frustrated that they don't, and it was very interesting to hear them say this because they were saying it's really hard to be someone who is verbal and able to express myself because sometimes that means that people don't realize what I'm going through because I
That's
can articulate and I can, make it look like I'm fine and I can this that, and the other, but that doesn't mean that I'm not experiencing actually quite a lot inside that
Mhm.
someone with level two or level three might be experiencing.
Yeah.
But it's like they obviously in terms of societal, norms,
Hmm.
oh, they're autistic, they're, having a meltdown. But like I'm also having a meltdown, but I'm just not having a meltdown in that way.
Hmm.
And so my meltdown is therefore like less valid almost.
Hmm.
Um, and I thought that was really interesting because it's kind of true. And it's not that this person was wishing that they obviously that they had anything different. But it's just an interesting perspective, for sure. And
So valid. It's so relevant. I still experience that now.
yeah,
There'll even be moments with my wife where, something will happen and I'm not coping in that moment. And even if
mm,
that's the 20% of the time, I feel like sometimes the expectations of me are, oh, but to be this perfect pedestal thing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
right. And I go, well, but in that moment I can't be because I'm overwhelmed or whatever. And then
yeah,
when it comes to friendship circles or sometimes professional circles, etc., that classic honest insult. Oh, but you don't look autistic. You go,
yeah.
fucking
What does it
hell.
look like? Like
I
what?
know. I know it's a cliche, but people don't realize what a cliche is because they're not part of trying to understand that community.
Yeah,
Um, but I suppose what one we're trying to point out here, I relate to your followers' distinction there
yeah,
massively. I think that's a very, very common experience. Just because you can articulate it and just because you may come across as normal,
yeah,
doesn't mean that it's not going on
yeah,
inside.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think it's so important that, and this is why it's important that we talk about it so that as many people can understand whether you are neurodivergent or not, the
Hmm.
more the world knows, the better.
Yeah, yeah, and again, even with my friendship circles, some of their reactions, like I'm sort of happy with half of them, not quite satisfied with the other half, if I'm being honest. And it's kind of like things like, oh, but we love you still the same. Yeah, that's great. But what I was looking for, and I think probably most people are when they first get diagnosed, is what I want from my friends and family and loved ones is I want them to be inquisitive. I think that
Mm,
that's often the missing thing. Please be inquisitive about
yeah,
what that actual experience of life is,
yeah,
um, because again, you don't know. You've just assumed that everything's fine. Oh, he's
yeah,
just a bit like that sometimes when he gets like that.
yeah, yeah,
But try and come inside the world a little bit.
yeah.
Tell me about that for you. Like, have you found there were did you ever notice those moments where you want people to be more inquisitive?
Yeah, I mean, all the time, even before I was diagnosed, sometimes I just wish that often and still I would, be having a mini meltdown, whether it was external or internal.
Hmm.
And I just wish people would say, like, is everything okay? And then when I say, yeah, it's fine, when it's clearly not, especially people who care for me and know that actually it's not,
Mm.
I do wish that you'd be like, okay, but what's going on? Like, let's unpack it. Like, let's talk about it. Because I often don't want to be a burden on people and I don't want to be annoying. But if you ask me questions about it, of course I want to talk about it. Like,
Mm.
I would love to share my experience with you and share like how you can help when I'm, feeling like that. And it's so validating when people do say, when you say like, oh, I've got ADHD, when someone turns around to you and is like, oh, is there something that I can do then to help you if you're feeling overwhelmed? Like I had one of my ex-boyfriends did this and he was very neurotypical. And it was amazing because I told him I had ADHD and he knew nothing about it. And he was
Hmm.
like, I've just ordered 2 books so I can understand how your brain works. And I was like, well, that's so nice. It's like
That's
no one's ever
awesome.
done that. And it was so sweet. And he read through them and then he kind of talked to me about what he's learning and he was like, do you experience this? Like, do you feel like this? Or um, traveling for me is really overwhelming. And he would always sit me down before we travel and be like, right, what do you need from me in this situation? Like, what can I do? And I think that's
Mm.
so important and it's rare and when it happens
Mm.
it's really nice and I wish more people did that.
That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. And it brings me back to the term disability, disabling in the moment, all that stuff. What's the language? I suppose it's this is down to culture, it's down to society, it's down to ourselves as well to try and understand that. One of the phrases we use in the industry I work in is support needs. So like how can I support you, literally? And we may use
Yeah,
that in the context of all sorts of people that we're looking after.
yeah,
But I suppose that's also if you think about anything in life, like if you think about if someone has anxiety or depression, or they're going through just a tough time, they don't have any formal kind of diagnosis, just even that simple question of interrelationally, if we can
mm,
ask each other, what's happening for you right now? What do you need?
yeah,
Right? I suppose that's almost a way of transcending the term,
yeah,
disability or whatever. You can say, well, look, there are certain moments where, yes, I have ADHD, and this is in certain moments I get overwhelmed. These are kind of some of my triggers, and this is what it may look
yeah,
like. That's just you expressing a need as a human,
yeah,
right? Sort
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
transcends terminology a little bit and it gets a bit
Yeah,
more compassionate.
exactly. And it
Yeah.
doesn't, yeah, you're right. It doesn't need to be like, all the terminology, whatever. It's like, I mean, anyone, even people who are neurotypical, everybody needs support and
Mm.
everybody, deals with everything differently. And I
Mm.
think asking questions about that is so important for everyone. I think we should
Mm.
all do that to
Mm.
help understand it. The world would be a better place if we did.
It would. Tell me about. I'm going to share my journey, but I want to very. This, by the way, this is very neurospicy what we're doing here. We go. Tell me about you. Tell me about you. And we go
Yeah, yeah, I
framed
know,
up, share,
I know.
share. We just go
I
straight
love
into
it.
it. Tell me about your trauma.
Yeah, I know. Only neurospicy people do that, honestly.
It's very
Like we're all
true.
just so open.
Very open. We go
I'm just
deep
so open.
and quick.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I want to talk about alcohol and relationship to substances, right? So for me, I grew up in a musical household. My parents were musicians, and I love lovely memories. So as a young man, starting to 18, starting to have a glass of wine, all that kind of stuff, we'd go to these concerts. It was classical music, and we'd come back and we'd have cheese and wine and get shit faced until midnight. And it's honestly some lovely memories, like where it was
yeah,
very connected and loving, and it was great. But then I go into my 20s and I'm a young man and I'm honestly masking and realizing that I'm coping socially through booze. And I
yeah,
recognize now, looking back to my 20s in particular, I was like, you know what? Probably was an alcoholic. There were times living in Bondi where I was on a bottle of wine a night. And I was
yeah,
like, holy shit. And I look back on that now as a mature man and I go, oh, that wasn't good. That wasn't great.
yeah,
And so the reason I'm linking it to neurodivergence is that I think there's a masking thing where it can become, a coping mechanism. From a
yeah,
dopamine perspective, well, ADHD's got a dopamine deficiency, right? We find it
yeah,
harder to have dopamine. Guess what you get a lot of when you have a beer? You get a massive dopamine hit. So there's that. And
Yeah.
then the third thing I want to say about my own journey is that I I'm 99% sober now, and I'm glad it took me about a decade to get there. Because I was like, I had to shift all of my inner wanting to please people socially because Chris is more fun when he has a drink, right?
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
to shift that. And now that I've got there, it's every once in a blue moon. And so once in a blue moon was the other weekend when it was Thanksgiving, right? And it was
Yeah.
also the other weekend when it was our Christmas party at work. And
Yeah.
every time I do it, I regret it because it
Mm,
takes me 7 days to get over hating myself, depression, complete lack
yeah.
of motivation to do stuff. I was doing a weight set the other day, and I was like, I can't be bothered lifting that dumbbell. And I forced myself to do it, and I felt better afterwards.
Yeah.
But like my theory that I don't think is talked about enough
Yeah.
is that if you are neurodivergent, you've got a dopamine thing, the masking thing, the coping thing, that can lead to dependency. It can be a dangerous avenue.
Yeah.
I think that if we are struggling with dopamine generation in
Mm,
moments, then I feel like alcohol or drugs or anything like that can be a really dangerous and dark place. Because if
yeah.
you've got a problem making dopamine, then that I found this in my own experience, it literally takes me a week just to get back to baseline,
Yeah.
right? And I think we've got to be really conscious of that, because it's a really tempting path. That's my
Yeah.
relationship with alcohol. I want to hear what's your perspective
So,
on all that.
okay. So this is really interesting actually, because I have always, like I said to you, going right back
Mm.
from when I was very young, I have always not wanted to be different. And what is interesting is when people started drinking,
Mhm.
um, I tried it and I part of my over stimulation and when I get like sensory issues, for me it's taste. For this reason, I'm unable to swallow fizzy drinks. And when I was a kid, I didn't realize, I thought all children couldn't swallow fizzy drinks, and it was just like a thing. And I thought, well, as I grow up, I'll be able to swallow them. No, I can't. It hurts me. It physically hurts me to swallow them. So I had that restriction. Now everyone starts drinking, and I did not like the taste of it. I could not do it. And I tried, and I would stand there with a drink. And firstly, a lot of the like sweeter drinks are fizzy, so I'm like having an issue drinking that, obviously. And I didn't want to tell anyone because I don't want to be different.
Yeah.
So I tried doing it, and I could never finish a drink ever.
Mm.
So I never got drunk. I would hold it in my hand and I would drink bit by bit. And other people around me would be, doing this, doing that. And like I couldn't take a shot because for me, like I can't, like I said, I can't swallow a fizzy drink. I definitely can't take a shot because although it's not fizzy, it's the taste of it was so overwhelming to me. Like it would hurt me so much. Like more that like other people are like, oh, that burns. Like it like the tiniest bit, like someone gave me the end of their shot once and I put it like and it felt like my throat was being ripped out of me. Like it was so painful. And so because I had that experience and I experienced other people around me being drunk, it what kicked into my head is that people act really different when they're drunk. And that terrified me because like I didn't want to be different. I was trying to drink to not be different.
Ha!
But then I saw everyone else being different around me, and my friends were all acting like completely different people. And I was like, I hate everything about this. I don't understand all the things I thought I knew about these people socially. They're not doing that anymore. And I was so stressed because I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to be with you anymore because all the rules I've made in my head about how we interact don't work anymore.
That's
Um,
fascinating.
and I think because I had literally had that like physiological issue,
Yep.
um, and then experienced other people around me, I think the whole thing stressed me out. And
Hmm.
I've never been drunk because of this. And I've
Really?
never, it's always terrified me. Same with drugs. Like you
Yep.
cannot convince me. Like I won't do it.
Okay.
It scares me so much. And so I think I've just been like always scared of it. And like now as I'm older, I'm now like really glad. Now I know what I know and what you've just explained, and now I know that I am neurodivergent. I am so grateful that I didn't go down that road because I do
Wow.
have an extremely addictive personality. Like I've been very unhealthily addicted to the gym and I always go in and out of this still now to this day. Like I have a, a healthy relationship with the gym
Hmm.
sometimes, most of the time, but it
Hmm.
can go really like
Hmm.
too far down one way, because I just get obsessed with things.
Hmm.
Um, and that can really negatively impact me. So I know
Hmm.
that I probably would have had a problem, and definitely that could have been very real for me.
Hmm.
Um, and I do
Hmm.
breath work every day. I hate it. I'm going to put that out there. It's boring. It's so boring to me, but it's so important. It's like I
Yeah.
literally hate it. Every time I do it, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do this. And I'll lie down and I'll be like, oh, it's so boring. I literally can't listen to this man speaking. Like, it's so boring. But it's so important for me. And I notice
Mm.
the difference.
Yeah.
And so, like, there are things you can do that will, it be in its place.
Yeah.
And I am just honestly fortunate that I had that series of events that is so random
Hmm.
that kind of led to me not drinking.
It makes so much sense, though. I think it's worth unpacking those two things, the sensory thing and also the social thing. So a divergent trait can be that we want to socially rehearse. And you were
Yeah.
describing your childhood and like, oh, but I feel like I'm being this way with one person, that way with another. In your own content, you said, hey, here's my personality for you because I
Yeah.
know exactly what you want. I'm another person,
Yeah.
here's my personality for you, but what's the authentic version, right?
Yeah.
So an anxiety thing, because we feel different, can be basically wanting to socially rehearse or understand basically the rules because we can have a challenge of understanding whatever bloody hell a social norm is or the unsaid rules because
Yeah.
I know I speak for myself. I do take things more literally, so therefore I go, but why aren't you just saying that?
I
What's all this
do.
unsaid shit? Like, oh my God, doesn't make sense. And so
Yeah.
that's how you feel different, right? Because you go,
Yeah.
why are they not saying what they actually think? Why? But there was, I could see it in the face there. They were not saying something
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
So you're kind of trying to figure out this stuff, and you go, "What bloody hell!" And that's still a constant experience, generally speaking. So I
Yeah.
think it's worth recognizing that within your context of you and watching your friends getting drunk, because
Yeah.
it probably. I don't want to speak for you, but let me tell me if this hypothesis hits home.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, because of everything we just said, you would have created a construction of like what you see your friend as, therefore what the rules are of how I
Yes.
engage with Sue and Bobby and John, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So therefore, when Sue and Bobby and John are not coming across like those rules anymore, it's therefore scary.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, 100% it was that. And I used to even, the closer the person was to me, I'd actually get really upset with them
Okay.
because I didn't understand at the time. I didn't know I was neurodivergent at all. Um, and especially like my bestest friends, I'd be
Mm.
like, why are you acting like that? Stop acting like that. Like, please. And I get really stressed. I'm like, stop doing that. Stop. Why you do it? That's not you. Stop doing that. And
Hmm.
it's really because it was stressing me out because I was like, I don't know what to do with this anymore. Like this doesn't match my database on you.
Yep.
Um, and that was so stressful for me. Um, and so like I think, yeah, it just caused me so much inner stress that also I just withdrew socially, like I said. Especially at that age, people start drinking 15, 16, 17. That's also when I withdrew. And I'm sure that had a big part of it because I never ever, I went to a couple of house parties that were happening and I had that experience. And
Mm.
in my head, I'm like, I hate it. I don't want to go to
Mm.
this house party. I found it so stressful. I never knew what to do to the point where sometimes I'd be like, okay, should probably go to this one so people don't think I'm weird or like people, whatever. So I'd go to one and I'd be like in the car on the way there thinking, okay, how do I create conversation with these people? Because I don't know what to say. And I would be so stressed. I would hate every single second of it. I'm like, the
Mm.
whole thing of a house party stressed me out massively. Like I
Mm.
still can feel like now I don't feel like that because I'm
Mm.
less bothered and I have words to explain why I feel the way I do.
Yep.
But at the time, it was just so much anxiety, like even small things like there'd be music playing, and for me music is really stimulating in a good way, and
Okay.
I can't hear you when there's music. If there's a song I like, I can't actually talk
Just
to
want to
you, like I
dance.
cannot, like yeah, like I cannot. But then I would feel rude. Or
Yeah.
if there's music in the same way, if there's music I don't like, I find that really irritating and I'm then more short-tempered, and then I don't want to get annoyed with people, or people are
mm,
getting drunk and I find that really overwhelming because they're not being themselves. Like the whole experience of a house
mm,
party throughout my whole teenage years, I didn't even go to a club. Like I did not go clubbing until
mm.
I was 22. It's the first time I
Yep.
went into a club because I wasn't interested because
Mm,
it all just overstimulated me so much. I didn't know what to
mm,
do. There
mm,
was too much happening and there were too many decisions I had to make
mm,
socially
mm.
that I just and like you said, I think that is also why a lot of neurodivergent people lean on the alcohol because it kind of takes a lot of that away.
It does. It does. I got into clubbing at like 25, and I
Yeah.
loved it. I loved it, but I was
Yeah.
doing the shots and doing all the booze, like, to basically cope. But gosh, it's really interesting. Wow. I, in a way, I want to be very clear. I don't judge. Like, there's no judgment on, like, if
Oh
you,
yeah,
if
no,
someone
neither
chooses to
do
have a
I.
drink, that's fine. I'm happy for you. Go
Yeah.
for it. Like, I almost wish I didn't have the hangovers like I do. I think I used
Yeah.
to cope better in my 20s, and that's why it's got worse. Now I'm finally accepted that I can't really do it anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but there's no. It's not about judgment, but I think it's about, again, framework and language and
Yeah.
understanding that there can be a path towards addiction because of wanting to feel socially accepted, because the
Yeah.
mask, you're not worried about the mask anymore. Because often, like, a lot of divergent people, they're just their playful, natural, authentic self, because actually the mask comes off when they're drunk, right? They don't have that social anxiety anymore because he gets rid of the social anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, but then the irony is life is a pendulum. You pay for it the next day when it comes back, and then you have all the social anxiety in the world because
Oh
you're
yeah.
hungover.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I've seen that, and like I said, that's kind of what scared me into
Mm,
not doing it. But
mm,
I mean, trust me, I was masking like crazy at those
mm,
parties. Big like
mm,
I was so socially anxious. I mean,
mm,
like if I did take a drink, it would probably have made my life a lot easier because I wouldn't have been so stressed out. And like,
mm.
I mean, honestly, to the point where I convinced almost all my friends at school that I drank. I would hold a drink in my hand and I would act drunk just to stop people from asking me questions
Oh,
because I
wow.
didn't want to deal with it. People like now, when like I see my old friends, people like are like, "Oh, you don't drink?" I'm like, "No, I never have." And they're like,
I never
"What?"
have. Wow.
Like because they all think I do because
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
behaved in that way at school. And so they're like, "Sorry, you've never, what do you mean you've never drank?" I'm like, "No, I've never drank." And they're like, "But didn't you?" No, no, I never did.
Wow. And the other thing to briefly unpack is your whole the fizzy drink thing and the sensory feeling. Like, so that's a sensory overwhelm,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it comes in all different fashions. So for me, it's the noise thing. That's a physical sensory thing for yourself. Tony
yeah,
Robbins talks about association and the power of association. So I've been to pretty much all of his workshops, and it's incredible. And I know
mm,
through that experience that it basically, if you associate something strongly enough from an emotion perspective in that moment to a
yeah,
particular mental outcome or perspective. So
yeah,
for you, it might be something like, this is disgusting, I don't like it. And
yeah,
also, this is disgusting. Not only does it feel physically wrong, literally in your mouth, I also
yeah,
don't like the way people are acting.
yeah,
That's interesting because, again, see how it kind of mesh together, strong
mm,
emotion and psychological perspective. I
yes,
don't like the way it makes people act.
yeah,
That's like a fusing effect to, I suppose, your
yeah,
perspective of alcohol in a very healthy way, right? Because, again, it's, yeah, I'm a healthy individual that doesn't really, it sounds like you don't really, need the booze kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's literally just like pretty random that that happened, and now I'm really
Hmm.
glad, and I'm proud of the fact that I don't drink, but I absolutely like all my friends do, my family do, and
Hmm.
I'm non-judgmental of them, like you said, like
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with anyone drinking around me at all.
Mm.
But it's just for me. Often when people ask me like why are you sober, like obviously I don't go into all of that. I just say I never liked
Mm.
it when I was younger when people started drinking, and so I just never got into it. And
Mm.
now I'm like, well, I've got this far, so I'm not going to start now. Why on
Mm.
earth would I start drinking at 28 if I've gone through all of like that
Mm.
social, like it's hard in terms of peer pressure. I've gone
Mm.
through all of that. I'm not getting that peer pressure anymore. Everyone's like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. Like, I'm 28 now. People are like, good for you. But they
Hmm.
weren't like that before. They were like, why not? Just try it. Just take it. Just,
Right.
you know. And now I've got through that. I'm like, well, I'm definitely not starting now.
Mm.
Now I've got this one. Like, great, let's continue.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And one thing I can also say from experience of becoming a parent, like I've got three kids, and so like daddy doesn't get to be hungover anymore.
Yeah,
You gotta be right up and ready to go, and you can't,
yeah,
they don't deserve the moments where you might be impatient because you're hungover. Like I also kind of that broke my heart enough to kind of go like, I can't do this anymore, as well as
yeah,
yeah. So tell me about what you do, because I think all of these things are reflections on what we need as individuals, how our brains and bodies work.
yeah,
Um, what do you do? I see my life like an ecosystem, right? So you mentioned the gym, for example.
yeah.
What do you do to nurture yourself?
Yeah, so the gym is 100% something that is so important to me. I wake up and I go for a 5 mile walk, and everybody thinks I'm insane. But that quiets my brain a lot. I have a lot of racing thoughts, and like physically getting that out at the beginning of the day does really help me. Also, I just if I don't move, I
Mm,
get really agitated. And I just feel like I can't do anything. It's like I need that thing at the beginning of the day where I've gone for my walk, and it's almost like you've done the exercise for the day. I will also go to the gym, but that happens later. But it just kind of sets me up really well for the day. So a lot of walking. I do run, but I don't I'll run maybe 3 times a week on
mhm.
top of the steps. Like I know this makes me sound insane. My whole family are like, you are crazy. Like
Awesome. It's great.
literally
Yeah, it's great. Love it. I
I'm
get
like
it.
doing like 20, 30K steps a day and it's crazy. But that's just what keeps me honestly like sane. Like it
Mm,
just it works for me. I know it works. It makes me feel good. And so I do that.
mm,
Um I'm quite good with my diet, but what I will say is that when my dopamine is low, which happens often, because I'm unmedicated as well,
mhm,
um, I I will reach for sugary things, and like that
mm.
is a big thing for me because it does make my obviously when you reach for sugary things, your blood glucose levels spike, and then when they drop, that makes your dopamine levels even worse.
Yes.
But that is one thing that I try to keep my diet really good, but I still do find that really, really hard to
Yep.
stick to. So yeah, I try to do with diet. Something that's super important to me is I don't know if you can see behind me, that's my fridge there, and it's
Yes.
got whiteboards on it.
Yes.
Um, the whole top, there's the freezer at the top. That
Uh-huh.
is all covered in whiteboards. And that is my brain.
Okay.
I
Are
need
you
it.
like vision
So
boarding and brain dumping what you want to do? Is that the kind of stuff?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have like one for food, for example. I cannot remember. I can't go into a supermarket and remember what I need for the week. It's just
Right.
impossible for me. I find it really overwhelming. I can't. I will leave with things that I didn't need, and I will not have the things I did need.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't do it. So I write everything down. It's on the fridge so that when I run out of something, immediately I put it on the board. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to think about it anymore. And then I take a picture of that and I go to the supermarket and buy the stuff. Um, I do need something to
Mm-hmm.
help me remember. Like my forgetfulness with my ADHD is the thing that I think I struggle the most with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I find it really hard, especially like right now, I live between mine and my boyfriend's house. Like we live very close to each other, but we live in separate places. And I find that so overwhelming because I've got half things here, half things there. And obviously, most of my stuff is at my apartment. And I'm also making content all day, and I've got like my lights here and my microphones. And sometimes I bring them over to his to film there. And then I'm like, oh, I forgot to bring it. And now I'm at my house. And then I have to take it's like a 10-minute drive.
Mm-hmm.
But it's for me to organize myself to go on that 10-minute drive, leave the house, get the stuff. Like I'll forget something else, then I have to go back. Like all of that is so stressful for me.
Mm-hmm.
And like transitioning from one thing to another, that having that whiteboard is so helpful because I will write down everything that's going on in my brain on that board. Like if I
Mm.
know, if I suddenly think, oh, I've left my microphones at his, I'll write it down instantly because I know I can't trust my own memory. I
Yep.
might think so many times I've thought, I'll remember that next time I go there. No, I won't.
2
No, I
months later.
yeah, exactly. And like I'm just kidding myself. There's this, I'm
Yeah.
just not gonna remember.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will still be delusional about it and I'll think I remember, but the whiteboard's there for a reason. And I need to be like, no, Laurie, write it on the whiteboard. Just do it. Even if you think you'll remember, just do it.
Mm,
So that's really important for me.
mm, mm,
And then I really need a network of people around me. I've really noticed that. Like I need a community and I really try to make sure that I call my family every single day when I'm here. I do it on my walk. Um, so because there's obviously a time difference, every single day I call them. That's so important for me to
mhm,
speak to them. And as soon as I got here, I worked on building friends, which obviously as somebody who's neurodivergent, it can be quite hard. But I do have some really great friends that I'm building here, and I definitely need that, especially with my job right now being content creation. I will just spend the day creating videos, editing them, and it could be really lonely. And I notice my mental health deteriorates so much, and I just need to make sure that I'm on top of having a community. Um,
mm,
even if it's not even necessarily like I need to talk to people about like problems that I have, whatever. Obviously, it's important to have community for that reason.
mhm,
But it's more just I need human interaction. It's so important for me,
mhm,
um, just personally. Um, and so I've really tried to make sure that I prioritize that. So like I said, I make sure that I have the friends that I have here. I speak to my family every day. I also make sure that I live in a place. I live in a city, and everything about a city overwhelms me, but it's also so important for me mentally to be in a city. Um, because I need those micro interactions with people. When I go into a supermarket, I can, that small interaction with the cashier, I need it. And it's
mhm,
really important for me to feel connected
mhm,
with humans.
mhm.
And so I try to make sure that I have that as well. And I would say those are my main things
That's
right now.
brilliant. Thank you. I mean, so that's the ecosystem of habits really, and even the whiteboard thing. Um, this is where my two worlds of autism and ADHD come together. Like my autistic trait is being organized. So I have the same thing where I have to immediately write it down. My friends take the piss out of me all the time for going like I'll do a diary invite. I almost make a joke of it now. It's like we're gonna go for a walk on Friday with my mate. I'll send him a
Yeah,
calendar invite.
same. I love it. Love a calendar invite.
It doesn't exist if it's not on the calendar. Um,
Yeah,
but I do that with my calendar, with my like digital to do. I'm the digital guy, right? So I'll put it as a
yeah,
digital to do, but it's my equivalent of a whiteboard. So I'll immediately put it in the diary, like a to-do
yeah,
list. And I think that's really important because then it's the reminder to yourself. And then when it comes to my computer, because I work in an office environment and I do a lot of
yeah,
computer things, I've got other colleagues that are neurodivergent too, and we joke about the number of tabs that we have open.
yeah.
It's amazing that my PC is not spontaneously combusted. I like sometimes I'll have 40 tabs open. And it makes
Yeah.
sense in my mind because if I don't keep the tab open, then I feel like I'll forget to do that. But
Oh
then by
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? But then by having it open, I go, oh shit, yeah, I've got to send that email still or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Completely relate to that. It's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah, no, very interesting. Oh, Laurie, I love this conversation. It's th these things are important because it's authentic framework, language, experience. We are all individuals, but my goodness, are there some overlaps, right? Um,
Yeah, of
within this
course.
community. Yeah, very, very important. So tell me, what's next for you? What's your focus? You're doing amazing things on social media. Like what's your kind of what's your continued mission and are there any things on the horizon that you want to talk about and share?
Yeah, so I would love to write a book.
Hmm.
That's not happening like in the near future. But I definitely would love to do that.
Hmm.
And I think I'm not a parent, but I would like to write a book about bringing up children who are neurodivergent in all sorts of ways, because I think that a lot of parents have like a lot of guilt around this, or they, their child gets a diagnosis and they just don't know where to start, or it makes them start thinking, things about themselves. And I think it can be really complicated and like a real journey. And I think I've seen that in my own parents, and obviously I've worked with a lot of children as well. Um, and I think there's just I feel like I have a lot to talk about in that kind of area. So I would love to write a book about that. But the reason I mean, this might just be really silly, but I wouldn't write it yet because I don't feel like people would want to read it because I'm not a parent. And I think people will think that it's not like valid.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I think that's holding me back a little bit.
Hmm.
But my mum says that she would like to write it with me, and so I might, do something with her. So that's something I want to do.
Mm.
Um,
Love it.
and then I want to just continue growing the community that I've built online because it's really important for me. Like I said at the beginning of this, like it's so important for me to reach as many people as possible.
Mm.
Um, so I'm constantly working on trying to create videos that resonate with people, so I can reach more people,
Mm.
and share the message. And it's amazing because, I get little, DMs from people, and like they mean so much to me. And I think that it's so important, like that I hear about other people's experiences, like I said before. And I actually had a message the other day from a family friend who is a psychologist who said, Laurie, this is crazy. Someone came into my office today and I gave her an ADHD diagnosis. And as part of her diagnosis, I was like asking her, what made her think that she has ADHD? And it was your content. And
Ah,
it's just like a crazy, like,
goosebumps.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know. And I was just
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Like that sort of thing is so important to me because, she got a diagnosis because of, she resonated with something that I said, and that led her to actually go and get that. And that's life-changing to actually have that validation that there is something going on.
Mm.
Um, and that was just crazy that it was a family friend. But I get a lot of people saying to me, like, I got my diagnosis today because I've been creating content for almost a year now. So I'm starting to get like the people who followed me right at the beginning, I'm starting to get those people saying to me that they've got their diagnosis now. And, they say, I don't message content creators, but you've like changed my life. And people tell me
Mm.
that I've saved their life because
Mm.
they were so unhappy. And like that
Mm.
is so important to me. And it warms my heart so much. And
Oh,
like that's why I do it. And I think the more people that I can reach, I'm just trying really hard to reach as many people as possible, with
yeah.
all different types of content, because you just never know what's going to resonate. Like sometimes something funny that I think is just like a funny random thing actually really resonates with someone. They're like, wait, I did that like when I was a kid. And
Mm.
maybe, then they'll go through like the amount of people who say to me, I found your content and then I spent like the next 2 hours scrolling through it. Like, yeah, you probably are neurodivergent.
Exactly.
If you
Oh,
just like
wow.
hyper focus for that long. Um, but yeah, I just think you never know what piece of content is going to resonate. And so I'm really trying to do as much as I can, and build that community as much as I can.
Oh, I love it. Goosebumps, goosebumps, like, wow. Everything you've said, and the whole content of our conversation too, is describing all these seminal life moments where if that person hadn't said that, then maybe we might not have realized for decades to come, maybe
Yeah,
never. Like, it's so important. So
yeah.
thank you for the work that you're doing, and just keep on rocking it because it's so important. And I appreciate the stuff you're doing and think it's absolutely fantastic. So
Thank
just
you
keep
so
on going. Keep on
much.
going.
I will,
Yeah.
I will.
Brilliant. Okay, well, listen, Laurie, this is Laurie Faulkner here on the podcast. I'm Chris Hall. Like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. And yeah, and I look forward to having a future conversation with you about the next things when they come out and all that kind of stuff. So thank you
Thank
again for
you
today.
so much.
Cheers.